Russia launches massive strike on Ukraine's energy grid. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia launched 120 missiles and 90 drones in the attack. We have all you need to know on the Ukraine war. Also on the programme, a manhunt is launched for a husband of woman found murdered in a car boot. Detectives said in a press conference on Sunday afternoon they believe Panaj Lamba has fled the country. Prime Minister Keir Starmer wants world leaders to double down on support for Ukraine. STV News' Robert Peston writes from the Prime Minister's plane that Starmer's top priority for G20 summit is to solidify support for Ukraine among world leaders. And China's Xi promises to work with Trump during the final meeting with Biden. Fears of a coming trade war loomed large over the meeting between Joe Biden and Xi Jinping on the sidelines on the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit.
This is STV Evening News with Henry Stewart.
Good evening. Russia has launched a massive barrage on Ukrainian infrastructure in large-scale attacks across the country, causing significant damage to the country's energy grid. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Sunday that Russia launched 120 missiles and 90 drones in the attack. But as Russia has launched one of its largest airstrikes on Ukraine for months, here are the devastating impacts, as our STV News reporter Alex Izzat reports.
Fires continue to rage in Ukraine after Russia launched hundreds of missiles and drones in the early hours of this morning. Explosions were reported in several cities, including Kyiv, Odessa and Mykolaiv. Falling debris destroyed homes and buildings, causing widespread power outages. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said this was the largest attack since August, but thanked air defense units for destroying 140 aerial targets. According to Russian news agencies, Moscow confirmed it was targeting electricity resources, with a military airfield also hit. Ukrainian authorities are now bracing for more attacks on the power grid during the winter months, and Zelensky is calling for international support to help them defend themselves against what he calls absolute evil. But there are concerns about the future of foreign aid, with incoming President Donald Trump saying his priority is to secure peace.
I will end the war in Ukraine, would have never started if I were president. And I will prevent World War III from happening. I know all the players.
Yesterday, Zelensky told Ukrainian radio he would do everything to ensure the war ends next year through diplomatic means, but said the Russian president has opposing aims.
I think Putin doesn't want peace at all, but that doesn't mean he doesn't want to sit down with any of the leaders at the same table. For him, this is about ending the political isolation that Russia has faced since the beginning of the war.
The latest barrage has left at least 7 people dead across the country, and the repeated calls against escalation are apparently being ignored by the Kremlin. Alex Izzat, ITV News.
Police have launched a manhunt for the husband of a woman whose body was found in the boot of a car. Northamptonshire police said they believe Panjaj Lamba killed his wife Hartisha Brella in Corby earlier this month and drove her body to London before dumping the car. Detectives said at a press conference on Sunday afternoon they believe Lamba has fled the country. Northamptonshire police launched a murder investigation after Ms. Brella's body was found in a car in East London. Chief Elizabeth Paul Cash said our inquiries led us to suspect that Hartisha was murdered in Northamptonshire earlier this month by her husband Panjaj Lamba. We suspect Lamba transported Hartisha's body from Northamptonshire to Lilford by car. We believe he has now fled the country. We are releasing an image of Panjagalamba with this statement. More than 60 detectives are working on the case and are continuing to follow numerous lines of inquiry, including house-to-house property searches, CCTV and AMPR. Police were called on Wednesday, 13th of November, after concerns were raised for Miss Brella's welfare. Officers were deployed to her home address in Skegness Walk, Corby, and after getting no answer, a missing person investigation was launched. Neighbours in the area reported hearing screaming from Miss Brella's home. Fast-track inquiries were made, which sadly led to the discovery of a woman's body inside of a boot of a vehicle in Brisbane Road in Ilford area of London in the early hours of Thursday, November 14th. A forensic post-mortem examination which took place at Leicester Royal Infirmary on Friday, November 15th, established that Miss Brella had been murdered. Police are urging anyone with any information to get in touch if they saw anything suspicious in the past week in the area. Chief Inspector Cash said, if you saw anything suspicious in the past week or have any information, no matter how small, please contact us. We would always rather receive well-meaning information that turns out to be nothing as opposed to not receiving it at all. Police said there was no wider risk to the public, but they understood how shocking and distressing such an incident could be for the local community. Neighbourhood officers will continue to provide additional patrols in Corby in the coming days for reassurance. Anyone with information can contact the incident room by calling 101, quoting incident number Operation Westcott. Still to come on the evening news tonight. China's exile promises to work with Trump during final meeting with Biden. We'll have that story and more when we come back right after this very short break. See you in a moment. Hello and welcome back. The Prime Minister says his number one agenda at the G20 summit of world leaders in Rio tomorrow is to shore up support for Ukraine. Out of the peace deal against President-elect Trump says he wants to make with Moscow when taking office in January. On his flight to Brazil, in response to questions from journalists travelling with him, Sir Keir Starmer said, "We are coming up with coming up to the 1000th day of this conflict. That's 1,000 days of Russian aggression, 1,000 days of huge impact and sacrifice in relation to the Ukrainian people. That's why we need to double down on shoring up our support for Ukraine. It's got to be full support for as long as it takes." Even so, Starmer said that he wants the UK's special relationship with America to be as strong as it has ever been, though his full-throated support for Kyiv seems a million miles from Trump's preference for a negotiated settlement with President Putin. Starmer added that the recent arrival of North Korea troops to support Russia has serious implications for European security and for Indo-Pacific security. And this was another reason why it would be wrong to lessen Western backing for President Zelensky and Kyiv. Starmer was asked whether there is any point to decisions taken by government heads of the world's most powerful economies over the next 48 hours, given that President-elect Trump will not be present and may not honour anything agreed by President Biden. Yes, of course, he said, there are really important issues right here, right now, when it comes to Ukraine, and that's important we pursue. That's why I'll be making my number one agenda item to shore up support for Ukraine. Starmer said he had no plans to hold talks with Russia's President Putin, who will be represented in Rio by his Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The British Prime Minister had no comment to make on a conversation that the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz had with Putin that has been savaged by Zelensky. It's a matter for the Chancellor who he speaks to. He said, "It is understood what Starmer wants to secure in Rio is for President Biden to give permission for Ukraine and President Zelensky to be able to fire UK-supplied Storm Shadow missiles into Russian territory and increase financial support for Ukraine. By contrast, Trump says he is working on an immediate deal to end the war in Ukraine, and many of those close to Trump are pressing him to reduce military and financial backing for Kyiv. Trump's choice to be National Intelligence Advisor to Tulsi Gabbard is seen as a Russian sympathizer, and has in the past said that Russian invasion could have been prevented if Biden acknowledged Russia's legitimate security concerns." And finally, China's Xi Jinping has promised he is ready to work with the new US administration during his final meeting with President Joe Biden. During their talks on the sidelines on the annual Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Peru, Xi cautioned that a stable China-US relationship was critical to the two nations and the future and destiny of humanity. Make the wise choice, he cautions, as he looked ahead to the new era of America First under Donald Trump. Without mentioning Trump's name, Xi appeared to signal his concern that his incoming president's protectionist rhetoric on the campaign trail could send the US-China relationship into another valley. China is ready to work with the new US administration to maintain communications, expand cooperation and manage differences so as to strive for a steady transition to the China-US relationship for the benefit of the two peoples, Xi said through the interpreter. Speaking alongside the Chinese leader, Biden said, "We haven't always agreed, but our conversations have always been candid and always been frank. We've never kidded one another. These conversations prevent miscellaneous and they ensure the competition between our two countries will not veer into conflict." Despite Biden's administration coming to an end, the two leaders had much to discuss, with the president urging Xi to dissuade North Korea from further involvement in Ukraine and keeping out of Taiwan. On artificial intelligence, the two agreed on the need to maintain human control over the decision to use nuclear weapons and more broadly improve safety and international cooperation on the rapidly expanding technology. There's much more uncertainty about what lies ahead in the US-China relationship under Trump, who campaigned promises to levy 60% tariffs on Chinese imports. Already many American companies have been diversifying their sources away from China. Speaking in front of cameras at the conference, Xi said in the message to Trump, "In a major flourishing sci-tech revolution, neither decoupling nor supply chain disruption is the solution. Only mutual beneficial cooperation can lead to common development. Small yard, high fence is not what a major country should pursue." Biden administration officials have said they would advise Trump's team that managing the intense competition with Beijing will likely be the most significant foreign policy change they will face. Biden has viewed his relationship with Xi as among his consequential on his international stage and put much effort into cultivating it. And that is it for this evening. Stephen will be here with the news at the slightly later time of 10:30 due to I'm safe to get me out of here. I will be watching it. I hope you will be too. Every day else up next, but from all of us here on the Evening News team, bye bye.